to check out password cracking, a little steganography lab, and a really fun game we're going to play after that as well. So just to start out, I'm going to share my screen and just give you an introduction to password cracking itself. So I do want to stress that this is purely for educational purposes, just to learn about cracking passwords, and that's about it. So first, what is password cracking? So the most important thing to know is that when companies store your passwords, they don't just store it in a little Excel file saying username and password. It's stored as a hash. And a hash, in a really complicated definition, is using the password as input for a one-way deterministic mathematical function. So I just want to quickly break down each of those words. So by one way, I mean that it's really, really hard to get back to the original password, which is important for security. Deterministic, meaning it's a mathematical function, so it's always going to lead to the same result. Hashes may look like gibberish, just a lot of numbers and letters, but they're not random. They will always lead back to your password. And a couple examples are SHA and MD. Okay, so passwords can be cracked in one of two ways. Both John the Ripper, which is the tool we're going to be using, supports these two methods. So one is a dictionary attack. And for dictionary attacks, this is why you're kind of not told to really use common passwords, because what happens is hackers will pre-compute the hashes. So if they know that 1 million people are using, let's say, princess as a password, they'll already know, okay, she's probably using SHA, a version of SHA or a version of MD. Let's already figure out the password, create a nice, the hash, create a nice table, and then whenever we see that hash, we can compare it against the values in the table. So it's kind of like a matching game. Another option is brute forcing, meaning literally trying every combination of letters, every combination of numbers, and then every combination of special characters. So that's why using simple passwords isn't a good idea, because it can just be cracked in a short amount of time. Please feel free to stop me if there are any questions. I can't see the chat when I share my screen, so you can definitely just interrupt me, or there's people standing by the chat as well if you'd rather do it that way. Okay, so getting now to John the Ripper. So it is a free open source password cracking tool that can be used for a lot of different operating systems. And the way it works is it kind of does it in that dictionary style attack that I was talking about. It auto-detects the encryption, and it compares it against a large file that contains popular passwords. And they have word lists in over 20 languages, so if someone from Italy is still using princess as a password, John the Ripper is going to be able to find it. It hashes each password and stops it when it finds a match. So there's lots of different options to choose from, but we're going to try two: a MD5 simple password crack and a Kali user shadow file crack. This is an introduction, so there are a lot more things you can do with it. So first, quickly, prerequisites-wise. So technically, all you need for this lab is John the Ripper. We just recommended that you put it on Kali Linux, which was put on VirtualBox, just because that was consistent with the way we did it with the phishing lab a couple of weeks back, and then everything is provided for you that way. So I'm going to give everyone a second to open up their Kali Linux machines so we can get cracking. So the first thing we're going to do is actually use the internet to pick a password that we want to pick and turn it into an MD5 hash. So you can do this on the internet via Kali or via your home system. It doesn't really matter. Just go on Google and search MD5 hash generator. And just pick the first thing that comes up. Now, for this, I really encourage you to pick a really simple password to try out. Not because John the Ripper won't be able to do it, but just because it uses a lot of CPU and a lot of performance. So personally, I'm going to try doing pizza 123. Pasta 123 works really well as well. I tried that earlier today. Okay. Should give you your hash right here. It kind of looks like a bunch of gibberish. Okay, now going back to your Kali terminal, which I got from pressing this little black button right on top. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to sudo up. This basically means we're giving ourselves root permission. For John the Ripper to run, you need to be like kind of the root or the admin account. So that's the reason. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a txt file to put our hash in. So this can be done just like you would through Windows as well, using folders and files and things like that. But in the interest of kind of getting used to the Linux terminal, we can do it this way as well. It's going to be cat with that symbol. It's back to where it was. Okay. And then whatever name you want to call your txt file, I'm just going to call it SATA lab.txt. You can call it whatever you want. Then what you're going to do is just copy and paste your hash. Right there. Press enter. And then the way to escape from that document is Control-D. And just to test out if that worked properly, I'm just going to do cat again, this time without the weird symbol, lab.txt, and it says exactly what I want it to say. All right, cool. If everyone is good with having created the txt, we can actually move on to John the Ripper. Okay, so I'm just going to press John and click enter. It gives you all of the options you can pick. So one option that's really important to use if you want, but we're not going to do it today in the interest of this being introductory level, is word list. You can actually, so Kali Linux, as I said, comes with its own word list, but you can provide your own as well. One really popular one is the RockU breach, which is a real breach that happened from, I think, it was a company called RockU. I'm not sure if that was the name of the breach. But it released people's real passwords. So it's a really good indication of standard passwords that people like to use. But we're just going to stick with John the Ripper's word list files. Okay. So now we're going to do, it's literally one command and it works. All right, so John, so it will actually be able to auto detect that this is MD5. But again, in the interest of CPU, just to keep this quick, we are going to tell it that it is MD5. And this isn't too far from a realistic situation because there's only a couple of types of hashing algorithms and they all have a specific bit value. So it's not that hard for you to figure out what it is as well. So format, I'm going to tell it that it's MD5. Oh, I'll make that lowercase actually. And then you just say how to get to the txt file you made. So in this case, if you didn't actually go to any directory, it's probably just going to be in home SJU SATA. And once that's ready, we're going to press enter. So if that's good, we can start the process. So what's happening now is it's actually brute forcing it because it wasn't directly there, but it uses a combination of dictionary and brute force. So hopefully this works, otherwise I will try a different one. Pasta 123 was really good. I'm surprised pizza 123 isn't there. And if you keep pressing the enter key, you can see it's actually working on the brute force. It looks like mine was a little bit too hard for it to do in a short amount of time. So I'm going to pick an easier password. If anyone else is running into this issue, that means the password that we picked is probably a little too complex for it to do in a short amount of time. So I'm going to do Control-C to escape from here. And I'm going to do the same thing again with an easier password. But Pasta123 is really great as well to work. And I think password 1 with a capital P worked as well earlier today. So I'm just going to try the password secret. And it will eventually figure it out, just to keep it in the interest of time. If you're running into this issue too, then you're just going to do the same exact thing with a different txt file. And just a cool tip, if you press the up arrow, it'll go through all the old commands, so I don't have to type this in again. Okay, so this one was cracked super quickly, so it may have been a little bit too easy. It's hard to find that sweet spot. But as you can see, it was able to figure out that it was secret very quickly, which is pretty cool. So that's basically how that's the MD5 simple password crack portion. So for the second part, I'm going to go back a directory. I'm kind of finding the directory that I'm at. Okay. So now for the second part, the way this one's going to work is just like on this Kali Linux machine, there is a user called SJU SATA. We're going to create another user, and then we're going to guess the password for that user. So we're going to do user add -r, and then just come up with any name that you want to create. This is basically a username. So I'm going to call the username SATA lab person. Then we're going to create a password. And again, same type of situation. You don't need to do the MD5 hash for this one. This is actually you're putting in the password. But probably the simpler you make it, the better for the purpose of this lab. But I know for a fact there are a few that are kind of medium that are really good. Like password 1 with the capital P worked really well this morning. But I'm going to try a different one. Let's see. I'm going to try secret 1 with a capital S and see if that's too hard for it. We'll figure it out. Oh, oops. And added the user. Oh, my bad. Sorry, the command was password, and I figured it was weird that the password was actually showing up on the terminal. Password and then the actual username again. Sorry about that. And now it should say new password, and you can put in that password. I'm going to try security 1. Okay, it should say password updated successfully. Okay, now we're going to go back to John, and we're going to go to where these passwords are kept on your Linux machine, which is the etc. folder shadow. This is going to try to crack the SJU SATA password as well, so regardless, it's going to start going into brute force mode, but it should be able to crack the one you just created very quickly. Let's try it out. And you can press any key just to see as it's doing the brute force. If it is too complex, then I'll just do the same thing with an easier password. Yeah, this one's a bit too much. Okay, so I will do the same thing again. It's a bit difficult to find that sweet spot between too easy and too difficult, but in this case, I'm just going to do one really easy. That's really easy. Okay, this one, let's see, I'm just going to make QWERTY, which is a really popular password, unfortunately. And just press the up key and I can do the same command. Okay, so in this case, it figured out that it was QWERTY really quickly. If you do kind of pick a slightly more difficult password, you'll see that it does brute force for a second, and then it is still able to figure it out. So that's pretty cool. It was able to do it really, really quickly. So I do want to note something, because John the Ripper is really cool, because it tells you how it's doing it as it's doing it, especially if you press keys throughout. So I do want to notice, I want you to notice that there are 3 different salts on here. which is, oh, first let me back out of this. So I want to share with you the definition of assault. So to counteract that problem of people with really basic passwords always lead to that same deterministic hash, what a lot of companies will do, and a lot of hashing algorithms, it'll just like kind of add a little topping of a random value. And the cool thing about hashes is even if you change one bit, the whole hash changes. So it'll add like an extra 1 or an extra 0, and everything will get changed. So what was happening with your Linux machine is it added assault, it changed it, but John the Ripper was still able to figure it out, which is pretty cool. So just a quick bit of context. So where do hashes even come from? It may be hard to even get access to these numbers at all. Well, people hack into databases using SQL injection and other methods, and sometimes unencrypted traffic can even send hashes over the network. This is a packet capture where an NTLM server actually pushed through, it's kind of tiny, but it pushed through a hash in plain text without it being encrypted. So in special situations, that can happen too. Also, how you can, and this is incorporated in the semester-long project as well, because there's going to be a login situation with that. So Vince will get into that at another point. So how can you protect your password? If you're a developer, which many of you are or aspire to be, you should probably try to stay away from SHA version 1 or MD version 5, which is what we worked with today, hashing functions, because they're not very secure. And always try to add assault. Even though adding the salt wasn't able to stop John the Ripper in this case, it actually really can make a difference for more complex passwords. And as users, which we all are, try to use more complex passwords, and also don't be basic with the special characters. A lot of people will just do password as a password, and then the 2 S's will be $signs. That's incorporated in the word list for the dictionary attack. So just be aware of that. Okay, and with that, we're going to move on to our steganography bonus lab. So super quick, what is steganography? It's hiding something, it's hiding a secret message inside something that's not so secret. In this case, we're hiding a piece of text inside a picture. And even though this lab is, again, just kind of for fun, kind of cute and small, attackers really do use this in pretty serious ways. Many attackers will actually embed scripts within certain Excel and Word documents. So once the victim opens the Excel or Word doc, that script automatically starts running for the macro-enabled documents. So that's pretty serious. A lot of antivirus applications are able to, it's a signature that some attackers do, so they're able to notice these things, but there's new exploits happening all the time. Okay, so when we work with Digital Invisible Ink Toolkit, there's 2 options that you can, that I want to highlight. There's more options you can pick from, but these especially. So one is blind hide. It's really simple, and it changes the least significant bits of the pixel colors to match the message. What this means is it won't really make a difference to the picture, which is exactly what you want to do in steganography. And what do I mean by least significant bit? Let's say you were given $20,000 versus you were given $20,001. That $1 doesn't really make that much of a difference. So it's the same concept with these pictures. But because blind hide is really simple, it's not super smart. It may actually be able to, you may actually easily be able to see if the image is degraded. Okay. BattleSteg is really cool. It's really complex, but it basically involves shooting, which is finding random positions to change the image. And as soon as a bunch of random positions have clustered in one area, it moves to another area. So it's kind of like Battleship in the way it spreads out the message, which is pretty cool. So let's start. So for this one, you are going to need an internet connection. The tool that we're using is called Digital Invisible Ink Toolkit. You can do it on your Kali machine. I would think that would actually be better, but you can put it anywhere. But you will need an internet connection to install it. Okay. So I'll just show you how that would be done. And if you're not able to get it to get an internet connection or anything right now, it's totally fine. It's cool to just watch as well. You would do that by adjusting your network settings on your on your machine. Here we go. Make sure it's either bridged or NAT, and make sure your adapter is wireless or wired, depending on what you're actually doing. And just kind of playing around with those settings, you may be able to get it to work. Okay. Let me get out of full screen here. Okay. So the way you're going to install it is just go to Digital Invisible Ink Toolkit. They have kind of a strange download page. It's one of those that's like, will redirect you in 15 seconds type of things, but you would just press download and it would take you to that page. So I'll give it a second for anyone to download that. There are other tools like StegHide, but they all kind of have their own weird glitches. So I find this one to be really easy and pretty effective. Okay, for those of you that have it installed, you're going to navigate to where you installed it. It's probably going to be in your downloads. So to navigate a directory in Linux, you do CD and then the directory you want to go to. You can do ls to see what's on that directory. And the file that you're specifically looking for is this one, DIIT. Oh, let me zoom in again, just occurred to me. Okay, the way to open up a Java file is java-jar, and then the name of the file. If you do the first letter and then you press tab, it'll actually fill it in for you, which is pretty cool. Once you press enter, it will open up the GUI. So this one, if you're getting a little tired of using the terminal, this is GUI based, so it should be pretty easy. Okay. If there are no issues, we can actually create our secret message. So to do that, we're going to create a TXT file. That is actually back in the terminal for a second. We'll just jump there. You can open up another tab of the terminal if you want. That might be easier. We're going to do the same command, cat, with the weird symbol, and we're going to call this one steglab.txt. You can call it whatever you want. And this one is just whatever secret message you want to put. So I'm going to put, hi, everyone, and Control D to get out of that. Then we're going to jump back onto the GUI. You can then get your message. And this is kind of a standard file type system that you might be used to on your Windows or Linux machine. So I'm just going to try to create a new TXT file here, not in root permission, so it doesn't put me in the root folder. There probably is an easier way to do that, but just in the interest of time. So I'm going to call this one testing123.txt. Okay, and my message is the same thing. It's going to be, hi, everyone. Control D. Okay. Where'd the GUI go? Let me just open it up on here then. Okay. Okay, we'll try this again. There we go. Sorry about that. So the only difference that I did is I just did this on my SJU SATA user, not my root user, just to keep everything consistent. Okay, so this is the name of the TXT file, testing123.txt. Just going to press open. Now to pick your cover image, so this is when Digital Invisible Ink Toolkit gets kind of annoying. It has a very specific specification of what type of image it wants. So what I find works really well, jump back here, is I just looked up 24-bit color and then whatever you actually want to look up. Because it specifies that it wants 24-bit color images, and I've been finding that that works kind of well. So in this case, I just pressed Halloween. You can do whichever one you want. On Google Images. Okay, so I'm going to pick this one. It can be a PNG or a JPEG, so pretty standard picture file. I'm going to do save image. And I'm going to call it pumpkin.txt. Oh, .jpeg. Sorry, I'm used to saying .txt. Okay, and it's going in my downloads folder. Okay. Jumping back to the GUI. Going to pick the image. Just go exactly where you saved it to. See if you can view it. That's kind of the first indication if that picture is going to work. The password part is optional. It's just like something cute that the tool actually uses. That wouldn't work on other tools. And you can select an algorithm. So again, I showed you guys Battle Steg and Blind Hide. Feel free to use Hide Seek as well. Just to keep it simple, I'll do Blind Hide. Both will work though. Okay, and then it's going to give you a brand new image with the code hidden inside. So for that one, just create whatever image you want it to be called. So I'm going to call this pumpkin 2. You can save it as a BMP or a PNG file. I'm just going to stick with BMP for now. Okay, cool. Success. Message hiding was successful. Going to do view results, and this is what the new image looks like. And if you actually go to your files, you can find it there as well, wherever you decided to place it. I think I placed it in downloads. Yeah. Oh wait, no, that was the original one. Oh, here, pumpkin2.bmp. So as you can see, it looks exactly the same as the other one, but the message is hidden inside of it. And to prove it to you, I'm going to decode the image. Okay. So now I'll just go to decode and I will undo everything. Sorry, I keep forgetting where I saved it to. Let me find exactly where I did it. Oh, it was under SGU SATA. Okay. Right here. Okay, if you did put in a password the first time, you would put the password in there. You'd pick the algorithm you used to hide it. I use Blind Hide. And then you would just pick a message file to write to. This is going to come out as a TXT. So I'm going to call it answer 1 save. It should say success, message was retrieved. You go right to where you saved it then, and it looks like I saved it right on SGU SATA. And it was able to find my message, hi everyone. So this is something really cute that you can do with friends or just for fun with family. There are real things that you can do with it, but those aren't very educational, and a lot of those aren't legal, so I don't recommend that, but it's good to be aware of it. Okay. So jumping back to the PowerPoint. First, are there any questions about any of that? I know sometimes your image may not work and you may have to do it again. They're very specific. Okay, cool. So really super quick, these references, were really, really important. And I got all of my information from there. So I just wanted to highlight that.